Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin and its valuation against the US dollar. We're coming on to Sunday, and it's the last day of the week. I have about 10 hours until the weekly close, so let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at this chart. So, as I said in the live stream yesterday, Bitcoin on the weekly chart at the very least has been waking up to about $40,000 every week, right? We see it here and here. And what's interesting is that we're wicking and we're coming straight back down. You could see it with this candle body here, and then this candle body here, which is now in red, but pretty much neutral territory. We're having trouble coming up to it. So again, this kind of falls into line of my theory that we're not gonna get we're not going to have a V-shaped recovery. It's not going to be quick. And in fact, the chances of us even breaking the 20-week moving average are very slim. My proposition is that we simply grind back up to the 20-week and get rejected and come back down. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and this is, I think the line in the sand between Bitcoin in an intermediary phase or a bear market, one of them, and that's looking at the RSI. Now, when we look at the RSI, we try to take a look at maybe instances of when Bitcoin came back down, moves like here, where we see the RSI come back down to a very low level in a bull market of 43 or so, and then coming back up and recovering. So we know that it's possible to do that. In the cycle before this cycle, so the one in 2017, 2016, 2017, we see that during this phase, the R side never really went below 53. And that 53 corresponded to the 20-week moving average. Okay, this time we broke both. We went lower than 2013, and we definitely went lower than 2017 R size, and we're at like a 40 44 or so. Where that lines up pretty well are these moments in time when Bitcoin just breaks the 20-week moving average. So we could see it here, this area here, and this area here. When we look here, we could see that here as well. This movement here was the time when Bitcoin has broken the 20-week moving average. Now, we also see that, I'll circle that here. We'll also see that it kind of holds this line for a pretty long duration, right? And we can even see it jump back up should it come try to break the 20-week moving average. This one was pretty quick, but you could see the jumps, right? You could see the jumps. And that's the move to the 20-week moving average. We could see it here when in 2019 it rose up like what we saw here, and then ultimately when it broke down, came back down to this line. So every single time Bitcoin breaks the 20-week moving average, we come back to this line. The only exception to that is in the black swan event of coronavirus of 2020. Broke straight down the 20-week moving average, and we went down as almost as low as 33. Now this gets to my second point. In a bear market, so I'm not saying now, but in the bear markets that we're familiar with, whether that's 2017, where it was holding at $6,000, right? We were holding $6,000 very well, and then we broke down and dropped another 50% back down to 3,000. That brought the RSI to the bottom 30s. When we look at 2013 and we see it happen, when it ultimately broke down from, say, the levels that, of about 450 and breaking down to 282, it's when Bitcoin on the RSI dropped to 30. And then we had a prolonged market where we just continued to go lower. So, one thing to take note of is I was not here during 2013, but I can tell you in this area here, when I was in, when Bitcoin was holding this level on the RSI and Bitcoin was around $6,000, a lot of people believed that that was the bottom. A lot of people believed that was the bottom. It was holding it. We were holding it for months, and said that this is going to be the bottom, and the turnaround is going to be starting from this point at some point in time, and I believed it. And then Bitcoin said no, cut another 50%, and went back and went down to 3,000, which ultimately brought it down here. Here you could probably say the same thing. Uh, Bitcoin hold this RSI level, brought back up. We're holding this level, and then ultimately broke down and brought us down to the lower, or you could say below the yellow line on the RSI, which can indicate the bottom, right? These are indications of a bottom. Bottom of the RSI on the weekly here, bottom of the market. This is where we rebound. We are not below the yellow RSI. No, we are at the line. We're at the line like we were here, or even in 2019. This phase here, this area here was also at this line. We are holding it. So what does this mean? This could mean two things. This could mean this is the middle point of a prolonged multi-year bear market, or just a bear market in general, right? Where we hold this line, but eventually we break down to the 30s, and that indicates a year-long bear market, or just that is the confirmation of a bottom, right? And that in fact, in hindsight, we were in a multi-year bear market, like we saw here, and in 2014 here. Okay, so these circled areas here, I don't necessarily think people thought like we were in a multi-year bear market. People were convinced that we were going to move back up at that point, and I'm pretty convinced that was the same here in 2014. Although I wasn't there, I can't tell market sentiment, but I can tell you in 2017 that was the case when it was holding $6,000, and then in fact the real bottom was $3,000, and then we can attribute this to a year long, like a multi-year bear market. 2019 is a little different. We didn't drop back down to the lower 30s. No, we held, and it started to come up, and then we got hit with coronavirus, which caused, in my opinion, a black swan event, something you can't really predict, and something that you know I would say, should coronavirus not have existed, that wouldn't have happened, and we'd probably be just hovering over the 20-week moving average, consolidating during that time. But that's for a different conversation. What I'm trying to say is that in 2019, this was not a bear market. We broke below the 20-week moving average, but we didn't hit a bottom. And in that case, in my opinion, this is not necessarily a bear market, but an intermediary phase of a cycle. So the question now is, are we going to have a move here like 2019, where it's simply just an intermediary move, where we hold this line on the RSI and manage to make our way back out of the 20-week moving average, maybe have a test, rejected, and then another test where we ultimately break it? Something along the lines like that. That's how I see it. Or is this going to be, a year below the 20-week moving average? We struggle to get above it. We continue to get lower valuations every single time, and eventually get to the 30s on the RSI. I don't think necessarily we're going to hit the 30s on the RSI soon. I think, again, I'm pretty convinced that this is an intermediary phase of this cycle, of this giant cycle, if you wanted to call this one giant cycle, and whatever comes after part of that cycle. That's how I see it. These are just intermediary phases of Bitcoin coming below the 20-week moving average, and we're seeing a new pattern develop. But the RSI shows that this line here is the line in the sand for Bitcoin of reaching an absolute market bottom, resulting from a market cycle top. That is what this yellow line, I think, represents, or what I believe it to be representing, because anything below here is the bottom, is the market cycle bottom. It's the lowest that Bitcoin will go for that cycle. This corresponded to $3,000. This corresponded to like $200. And then this is where the turnaround happens. We've already had that turnaround for this cycle. We got it here, and we had it here. We had it twice. So with that said, I think this is an intermediary phase, and we could be looking towards in 2019 for some inspiration on how it might play out. Okay, This is when you're wondering, when you hear me saying like we could test it, come back down, and then break it the second time. 2019 is a pretty good drawing, I guess, in history to show you what I'm talking about. So you see the ultimate break of the 20-week moving average. We spend several weeks below it. We get a pump towards the 20-week moving average, and then we get rejected, and we find a lower low. Right, this low was lower than this low, but eventually the 20-week moving average comes back down to us. We manage to pump up, break through it, and we're off to the races. In the scenario that I'm predicting for 2021, um, or maybe early 2022, I'm not sure, but that's kind of the picture that I'm painting. If you needed a visual aid on how that might look like, 2019 is a good example of that. But we are now in our third week or so below the 20-week moving average. We're still ways away from maybe even seeing a test of the 20-week moving average. So for the time being, um, it's just monitoring and waiting. We'll keep an eye on the RSI. It has not moved. It has not moved. It's holding the line pretty well. So we'll see, obviously next week and the weeks after, how Bitcoin's going to fare in regards to this on the RSI. If it drops any further, if it drops below, then that poises to be a very, very good buying opportunity for Bitcoin, should you ever want it. Um, or if you subscribe to this theory that if it drops below, then that indicates that this is in fact a bear market, a multi-year long bear market. Maybe by that time you'll be frustrated. But I can tell you, anytime that Bitcoin hits the 30 on the RSI, poises to be a very, very good buying opportunity, no matter what your portfolio looks like. It's a very good buying opportunity. Anyway, that's all for today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.